case, but I don't think people have gone beyond it. And,
no,
I also think that, and this pertains to something we also talked about discussing, which was the continual drain from the church, the Catholic Church, perhaps in particular, but perhaps not in the West, of young people. And I think part of that is their inability to make intellectual sense of everything that they're faced with, a religious tradition and a scientific tradition, especially on the biological front. But not only that, they don't know where to place these things in their... but felt that it was worthwhile doing so. Again, it's been a long time, and many people have reached out to both of us continually asking us to converse. And so we felt that that would be useful and something, at least in principle, of public interest. Bishop Barron is the founder of Word on Fire Catholic Ministries and auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. He's a #1 Amazon best-selling author and has published numerous books, essays, and articles on theology and the spiritual life. He has been invited to speak about religion at the headquarters of Facebook, Google, and Amazon, and is one of the most followed Catholics in the world on social media. Thanks for agreeing to talk with me again, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jordan. Great to see you too.
So why do you think that people have written to you and to me suggesting that we converse? What's your take on this? It's surprising to me in some sense because it's not really my bailiwick, although obviously I've been putting my nose in there anyways.
I think for a number of reasons, people see the work you do as at least opening a door to the religious dimension of life or a deeper dimension of life. I'll tell you a story. I got up in front of the bishops of the United States because I was chairman of our committee on evangelization. And I talked about why we're losing a lot of young people. I went through some of the statistics and then reasons why we're losing them. And then I gave various signs of hope. And one of the signs of hope I gave was, I called it the Jordon Peterson phenomenon. And what I meant was this. I told the bishops, here's this gentleman gets up in a pretty non-histrionic way and speaks for several hours in some cases about the Bible. And young people all over the English-speaking world are listening to him in theaters, and they're by their millions on YouTube. And I said, I'm not here to endorse everything that Jordon Peterson is saying, but I think that in itself is a sign of hope. And so that became a source of some conversation among the bishops. But I do think it's a sign of hope. And I said to them, and it's really in some ways to our shame, that you were making the Bible more compelling and appealing in many ways than we were. So that's our bailiwick. That's our profession, is the Bible. But you were opening the Bible up in a way that young people especially were finding very compelling. And you were indeed, I think, thereby opening a door toward a richer and fuller understanding of the scriptures. I think that's part of it. But I also think it's the opening to the realm of objective value. So I think as I read you and listen to you, you talk a lot about the objective realm of value. That's not simply a matter of my subjective whim, that I'll decide what to do, or I make up my values as I go along. That there's something about the tradition, something about what's been given to us, an objectivity to moral value, aesthetic value, intellectual value. And see, to me, it's in a good way, a gateway drug to religion, because God, I would say, is the ground and the source of objective value. And when you sort of hyper-subjectivize the whole operation, that becomes, questionable. So I think your work there, too, has sort of primed the pump for a deeper exploration of God as the source of these objective values. There's a couple thoughts I'd have about it, but I remember
it's almost as if we need a third category, subjective, objective, and something else that is an admixture of both. I mean, there's things, I come across information in the biological sciences particularly that speak deeply of an intrinsic morality. And you see this, you can look at the work of Frans de Waal, for example, who's a Dutch primatologist. And he's been studying the social interactions of chimpanzees. And chimpanzees share a tremendous genetic overlap with human beings. And from an evolutionary perspective, we diverged from our common ancestor with chimpanzees something like 7 million years ago. Our cultures also share, or our biology also shares properties with that of bonobos. But I'm going to talk about the chimps for now. Dewall has been interested in what makes a chimp leader. So chimps organize their societies essentially in patriarchal fashion. The top chimp is male. That doesn't mean there aren't high status females. There are, but the fundamental power structure appears, let's say, patriarchal. And it's, in the popular eye, it's easy to assume that the top chimp is the most physically intimidating. But that's actually not the case. What Dewall has shown is that alpha chimps who maintain stable sovereignty, let's say, are more engaged in reciprocal interactions than all the other chimps in the troop. So they're very generous and reciprocal. They play fair. Now, you can get the odd situation where a chimp troop will be ruled by a tyrant, but the structure becomes unstable, and the tyrant chimp tends to be overthrown by coalitions of other male chimps torn to pieces. And so then if you think, well, maybe there is a pattern that constitutes, this is the crucial issue as far as I'm concerned, is there a pattern of behavior that typifies stable sovereignty? And I think that's in some sense the fundamental religious question. Is there a pattern of behavior that constitutes stable sovereignty? And if so, what does it consist of? Jaak Panksepp has looked at rat behavior, and rats, juvenile male rats, engage in rough and tumble play. And when you pair them together, if one rat is 10% bigger than the other, he can dominate the lesser rat. And so they do that, and they establish their relative dominance. And then if you repeatedly pair them together, which is a crucial issue, it has to be repeated pairings, the lesser rat has to invite the dominant rat to play. So that's his role, and the larger rat agrees and plays. But if the larger rat doesn't let the little rat win 30% of the time across repeated play bouts, the little rat will stop playing. And what I read that, it just blew me away. It's so significant because it shows, imagine that part of what morality is. Morality is precisely that pattern of behavior that serves to keep repeated interactions going. And those repeated interactions might be across days or weeks or months or years or decades or centuries or eons. A tremendously long time span. And so what you get is the emergence of a pattern of behavior that's stable for the individual and stable for society. And that, as that's instantiated more and more deeply, it becomes something we can observe and something that we adapt to and something that then becomes part of our central nature. And for me, that's the way into that's the bridge between biology and religion right there. And because it looks like there's an evolved ethic that even goes beyond human beings.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't deny for a second there's a biological ground for a lot of this business. And I'm with Lonergan, the great Canadian philosopher, that the condition for the possibility of real objectivity is a properly constituted subjectivity. So I like your opening comment about something that bridges the two. We don't just live in the subjective and objective as though they're discrete, but it's a properly constituted subjectivity, which means one free of various prejudices, one free of various fears, one free of games of self-denial and all that can properly intuit the objective value. And objective value does indeed come up out of the physical to some degree. I mean, we're embodied creatures. So the biological plays a role in that for sure. But I think, too, it goes beyond it. I mean, it goes beyond simply a question of survival of the individual or even of the species, but certain values, of the truth and beauty and the good that transcend that, although they're grounded